Lesson 7, area of composite shapes. Okay, so a composite shape is a shape that's made up of other shapes, okay? Composite. Let's look up the definition of composite. Not number, just composite. Composite means that it's made up of several parts or elements, okay? So it's made up of other parts, different parts. So in this case, it's made up of other shapes. And you can see in the video here that this large composite shape here, if you put that line down the middle there, if you draw a line there, you can see clearly that it's made up of two rectangles. So if you wanted to find the area of this composite shape, all you need to do is find the area of this rectangle and then add it to the area of this rectangle. So question 1 is very similar to the question in the video. We've got a composite shape here. They've already divided it into two, and they're actually going to get us to find the area of this shape first, then the area of this shape, and then add them together. So question 1 is find the area of the section labeled A1. So this shape here, we can see that it's a rectangle, and we know that our formula for finding the area of a rectangle is just the length times the width. So it's just going to be 7 times 9, which is 63, and this says meters squared, but I think it should say centimeters squared because this is in centimeters. And find the area of the section labeled A2. So A2 is this rectangle, which is actually a square. It's a rectangle, but it's also a square. So in order to find the area, we need to multiply 5 times 5, length times width, or because it's a square, it's just 5 squared, which is 25. And now it says find the total area. So we just worked out that this area here was 63, and this area here was 25. So if we wanted to find the total area, we just need to add 63 to 25. And we end up with 88 square centimeters. Okay, so this time we've got another composite shape, but instead of having two rectangles which make up the shape, we've got a rectangle and a triangle. So we need to know how to find the area of a rectangle, and we need to know how to find the area of a triangle. So question 4, find the area of section A1. Well, that's just this section here, which is the rectangle. And we know the formula for finding the area of a rectangle is just the length times the width. So 8 times 10, which is 80 centimeters squared. And now it's asking us to find the area of section A2. So that's the triangle here. And we need to remember back to our lesson on finding the area of a triangle. There was a different formula for finding the area of a triangle. And that was the formula half times the base times the height. So we need to multiply our base times our height. Our height is 10 centimeters, our base is 6 centimeters, and we need to multiply that by 1/2 as well. So if you think about this triangle as though it were half of a rectangle, that makes sense, because imagine we turn this triangle into a rectangle, and from this point we draw a line that goes up to here and a line that goes to there, and we turn this triangle into a rectangle. Well, then you can very clearly see that the area of the triangle, that's just going to be half of the area of this rectangle. There's just going to be another triangle here that's the same exact size. And so that's where we get that formula from. It's just half of the area of a rectangle. And the area of a rectangle, all you need to do is multiply the two sides together, so the 6 and the 10. But because it's a triangle, it's just going to be half of that area. So half times 6 times 10, that's our formula. If you like, you can just remember the formula. That's a lot easier than having to visualize it all the time. But it does help some students to visualize that a triangle is really just half of a rectangle. So it's the same formula as the formula for a rectangle, but you need to multiply it by 1/2 as well. So ours is going to be 1/2 times 6 times 10, which turns out to be 30 square centimetres. And now question 6 is find the total area. So we already found this area. It turned out to be 80 centimetres. And we already found this area, which turned out to be 30 centimetres. So in total, we just need to add 80 plus 30, and we end up with 110 square centimetres. Okay, we've got another composite shape here. This time they've just put a dotted line in there for us, but we can see that this shape is made up of 2 rectangles, just like the first shape. So if we wanted to find the area of this rectangle, it's just 8 times 10. And if we wanted to find the area of this rectangle, section A2, it's just 7 times 6. So if we wanted to find the total area, it's just going to be this 80 centimetres plus this 42 centimetres. So that's 122 centimetres. Okay, here we've got another shape just made up of 2 rectangles again. This time it's not going to take us through finding A1 and finding A2 and then adding them together. It's expecting that you know that's what you're supposed to do now. So when it says find the total area, we know we have to divide it into 2 shapes, find the area of each shape, and then add them together. So let's divide it ourselves. I can see there's a rectangle here. So this is just going to be 7 times 9 for that area. So you might like to write that down so you don't forget. 7 times 9 is 63 centimetres squared. That's the area of A1. But they're asking us for the total area, so that's not our answer. And you can see that answer doesn't even appear there, so it's not even an option for us. Now we need to find the area of A2, which is just 5 times 5. So that's 25 centimetres square centimetres. And to find the total area, now we've found each individual area, all we need to do is add them up. So this was 63 and this was 25. So 63 plus 25 gives us 88 square centimetres. And this question, I think this shape was the same as the first shape that we looked at in question 1. Yeah, it's the exact same shape. So they're really just asking us to do this question again. And then the triangle is the same as the shape that we looked at here in question 4, 5, and 6. So technically we can cheat and say, all right, well, I know this area of this total composite shape here is 110 centimetres because I did it in question 6. But we know that we had to find the area of this shape, and then add them together. Okay, question 12, find the total area. So this shape is a new shape. We haven't seen it before, but we can see that it's made up of 3 composite shapes this time. So we're going to have to find 3 different areas and then add them together. So let's start with finding the area of, let's start with a rectangle, nice and easy. The area of the rectangle is just the length times the width, so 7 times 10. So the area of the rectangle is just going to be 70 square centimetres. And then we can find the area of each triangle. This one over here is going to be half the base times the height. So half times 6 times 10. You can see that the height here is 10. Has to be the perpendicular height from the base to the highest point on the triangle. So half of 6 times 10, that's 30 centimetres squared. And then we've got this shape over here as well, another triangle, so half the base times the height again, but this time our base is 5. So it's going to be a half times 5 times 10. Our height is 10 still. So a half times 5 times 10, that's just going to be 25 square centimetres. And you need to write these down, otherwise you're going to forget the areas. So we had 70 centimetres square here, 70 square centimetres here, 30 square centimetres here, and 25 square centimeters here. So if we add those all up, we end up with 125 square centimeters in total for our total area. Here we just have two rectangles. You can see that if you drew a line down the middle here, that would just be one rectangle here and one rectangle here. You could also draw a line across here and make two different rectangles if you wanted to, but because we've clearly got the length and the width of A1 and A2, it's much easier to just use these shapes that they've sort of already given us here. So A1, 8 times 10, this will be 80 square centimeters, and A2, 7 times 6, this will be 42 square centimeters. So 80 plus 42 gives us 122. And we did this shape earlier in the quiz as well. Okay, one last question. We can see that this composite shape is made up of two shapes. One is a rectangle over here, one is a triangle. So we need to find the area of the rectangle and the area of the triangle, and then we need to add them together. Now the area of the rectangle, we just need to do the length times the width. You can see that the length is 7 here, and the width is 8. So we know that it's just going to be 7 times 8, which is 56 centimeters squared. You can write that down so you don't forget. That's the area of A1. And then we need to find the area of A2 here. So this is a triangle, and the triangle formula is a half times base times height. And we know that our height here is 8 centimeters because this side here is just, it's opposite this side, and it's parallel to this side. So whatever this side is, that's going to be the same as this side here. So it's 8 centimeters. But what's the base? We don't actually have a label for the base here. We don't have a value. So we have to work out what the base is ourselves. Now, it has told us that this total length here, the base of the whole composite shape, is 17 centimeters. And it's also told us that up here, this side is 7 centimeters. And now this side up here, well, that's opposite this side in the rectangle, isn't it? And opposite sides in a rectangle have to be the same. So if this is 7 centimeters up here, we know that this is 7 centimeters down here as well. And now if we know that this whole side length here is 17 centimeters, but we know that this side length here is 7, well, we can just subtract this 7 centimeters from our total 17, and we'll end up with what's left over here, which is what we're trying to find. So 17 centimeters minus this 7 centimeters here gives us 10 centimeters. So we're left with 10 centimeters for this side of the triangle, this base of the triangle. So we know that that's 10 centimeters. Now we've worked out what our base is. We know what our height is. Our height was 8. We can just plug that into the formula for area of a triangle. So half times the base, which is 10, half times 10 times the height, which is 8. So half times 10 times 8 is 40. So we know that our area for this triangle, this A2, is 40 square centimeters. We're nearly finished now. We need to find the total area. So we just need to add these two areas together. Over here we had an area of 56 square centimeters, and here we've got an area of 40 square centimeters. So if we add 56 plus 40, we end up with 96 square centimeters, and that's our total area.